Welcome to Story Route Zero.
This is a podcast where friends gather to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, and the strange worlds of video games. We often don't know where we're going, but that's half the fun. Come on the journey with us. Hit us up on Twitter at StoryRoute0. You can send us an email at StoryRoute0@gmail.com. That includes questions, concerns, comments, complaints, pet pics. Send us some recipes. Send us some stories about your day. We're going to listen.
Podcast, start your engines. We have liftoff. Let's have a journey.
Next, Moose, number 3.
Number 3 is Death's Door. Is that higher on anyone else's list?
It might be on Matt's, but he just took his headphones off. And I don't know.
He just disappeared.
He can catch up. You go ahead and talk about it.
So, Death's Door, I had access to it and played a little bit of it and was like, this is a lot of fun. And then was meaning to get back to it and never got the chance. And then it was announced coming out in November for the PlayStation platform. And I'm like, let's go. Purchasing this. Want to play it. It is a lot of fun. It is very much an adventure game, much like Zelda, but it has like Souls like combat and survival system, and you can level up your health, you can level up your magic, you get different abilities to use, which it's a nice balance between like using your magic, and then if you use all your magic, you have to like go in and do physical damage to something. It doesn't have to be the boss. It might be a projectile they throw. It might be something in the world that you're fighting in a mob that you have to hit for you to build up a charge for your magic. I thoroughly enjoyed the first and second boss. I'm looking forward to the rest of them. The soundtrack is really good. Sometimes I like to just stop and just listen to the soundtrack. Matt, I don't know if you heard me. My number 3 is Death's Door.
No, I heard you. That's why I said I want to make
okay.
sure it wasn't.
Okay. But anyways, love the environments. I like the exploration. I feel the exploration is clever, but it's not like you need to have like a PhD to figure it out. You know what I mean? Like it's just nice. You could just keep it rolling. It does a great job of keeping its pace moving without slowing down too much for like, okay, well now I got to bang my head against the wall trying to figure out how this puzzle works. I like the fact that it also kind of works some Metroidvania aspects into the game where you go back to another area with new powers and you get like other things for the game. Like you can pick up the way that, as far as I know, the way the healing system, this is it. Well, yeah, it is it. The healing way in the system works, you pick up little seeds, you can drop them in plants, and then like if you take damage while you're doing combat and stuff, you can go to the plant and use a charge and it heals you totally. Like that's it. There's no like healing during a boss. So you got to be on your A game while you're fighting a boss. And so like going back and finding more of those in different areas is pretty cool. Going back and finding the shrines that gives you, it's kind of like Zelda with the shrines in Breath of the Wild, where you get a little bit, you get a piece, and then you can take four and go do stamina or health. This gives you little pieces from their little shrines, and you basically can increase your health or your magic power. I find all those cool. The bow is a lot of fun. The fire is really cool. There's also me and Matt were talking. We were playing together one day and Matt's like, man, he's like, this guy is tough. And I'm like, what guy? And he's like, I found this like fire knight. And I'm like, what do you mean you found this fire knight? Like, I didn't find that, because he was a little bit behind me in the story. And he's like, I was near the Urn Manor.
The beginning of the Urn estate.
Yeah, and he's like, I like just stumbled on this room where this knight was hiding behind, and I'm just trying to take him out. I'm like, well, now I gotta drop everything and go fight this.
He's like, fuck Breakpoint. Where's this fire knight that I gotta kill?
Well, because the ability burns enemies over time. So as you hit them, it burns the enemies over time, which is nice. And so I also like the leveling system as far as like, I feel like it doesn't let you get overpowered too soon. So like you have to spend points. You turn souls in at the main desk, at the bank, at the main desk, in the Reaper, hub, and like it gets more expensive. So it starts out, I think, like 400 souls to level up, and then you can level up like your strength, so how hard you hit, all that stuff, your dexterity, how many more combos you can string together, and how much faster they go, and then your magic, and then your movement. And so it's a nice balance to like figure out how you want to level your character. So you could go all magic and be like, I'm just going to be ranged and hit when I get a second, and just do more damage with magic stuff and your magic abilities. It's a lot of fun. It's a beautiful game. It's an awesome sounding game. And I feel some of the bosses were tough but fair. That's what I enjoyed about them. And just varied enough to where you're like, all right, I see what you did there. And like each stage that you had to learn, like you died at, you were like, all right, you learn a little bit more. And it wasn't like some bosses like in Souls-like games where you're just, the RNG is just against you. The RNG is like kind of with you, but it's also kind of like, I'm gonna show you some things. You know what I mean? So it's a plus. I highly recommend playing Death's Door.
My absolute favorite thing about it, and it's not on my list, but I feel like this needs to be said, is the lack of a life bar on enemies.
Yes.
On enemies and bosses.
That is nice.
And for some reason, that reminds me of older games. Like, I think it was, for some reason, it's like the older, like Golden Axes and Double Dragons, where they didn't really have life bars either, but the bosses particularly would start blinking, and the more they blinked, the closer they were to death. And the cracking in this is wonderful. And yeah, this is motherfucking great game. I believe that's Michaela now.
My number 3, East 9, Monstrum Nox. So this came out and like kicked off a window of a lot of great games. Like this, Persona 5 Strikers, Bravely Default 2, all released bang, bang, bang. So I had a hell of a start to this year. And East 9, I've only played a few East games. I started with East 8. I played East Origin this year. So I've bounced around later games for the most part of the series. But even I could recognize that this was something special. And like I wrote in my review, this is like a celebration of East coming together. It is still a standalone anthologized tale, but it makes more references to previous installments than any other East that I'm aware of, where, there's like direct boss callbacks and stuff like that, and more references to Adol's and Dogi's past. And there's a lot of character development that accelerates from the get-go. The game is aided by the fact that it starts in media res, meaning in the thick of it. You start in the story, you're like, why is Adol being turned into a Hot Topic goth? What happened? What are we doing? Slow down. Hold on. Wait, why are we escaping a jail? What have we done here? What fuckery has gone wrong? And it keeps you on your toes and it keeps you guessing. And like I said, I thought I had the story figured out. And then the story was like, nah, bitch, you about to sit down and get fucking schooled. You had no idea. We're going Full Metal Alchemy on this shit. You're a homunculus. You're a homunculus. Like, it's like, what the fuck? Who just rewrote this fucking rule book and just like fucked with my life? And it was great. And the characters were great.
It sounds like JRPG Oprah did.
Yeah. Yep. And I like I said, I had a lot of like really endearing character moments where like UFO was great, the Raging Bull character was great. I really ended up liking Doll and Amona, and some of their stories were just, you know, tragic but cute and endearing. And the city of Balduke was really fun to explore. Like I thought the environment was going to feel restricting after having the entire island of Seiron to play with in the previous game. It's like, nope, they've taken this prison palace city and turned it into a vertical exploration fest, and there were, you know, a lot of secrets and fun things to find, and all the different characters lent different navigation abilities, almost kind of like in a Metroidvania way, sort of, where you're constantly just retracing your steps and finding ways to access places that you couldn't reach before. And the voice cast was really good. If you watch a lot of anime, if you including dubs, you're gonna recognize a lot of these voices. And I was like, oh my god, that's, you know, Erica Harlacher or whatever, or, you know, Christina V. I was like, oh my god, that's Christina V. And like, it was a joy. Everything about Ys 9 was joyful, and the ending, it hit my heart. It hit my heart in a good way. And it has me excited to wait now for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years until Ys 10 comes out.
Or you could revisit the rest of the series.
I have Celceta. I do need to play that one. That one's in my backlog. So
yeah, I have Celceta too. I haven't touched it either.
It was definitely the most satisfying. Like Ys 8 was fun combat. This one refined it a little bit more. It was really fun. It's just it is button mashy. It is button mashy hack and slashy. But I think the thing that this did best was pacing, because it started in media race, because there is character development immediately. Whereas Ys 8, which I really do love, it took a little while to get its wheels turning. This one was out the gate, start to finish, great pacing, very solid game.
Nice.
Now the Ys series, is just about all of them ADOL, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yep. Except for Ys Origin, he's the protagonist in all of them.
Okay. All right.
My
Jason.
number 3 is Loop Hero. This was
That's on my list. That's on my list at number 3.
Excellent. Perfect. This was a new concept for me.
Yeah.
I mean,
This
is not a game I would typically like play, like, or even like, I don't know what got me like into it, but like once I started, like, it's just so, I mean, yes, it's a roguelike. I mean, okay, we know
Sure.
It's sold, but it was just so different.
Roguelike and pixel art. That's Marshall.
It was just so different, like, and it was just, it was. I can't wait for the tomorrow, actually. Well, at the time it's recording, it'll be in the past, but the physical edition for Switch goes on pre-sale. So we'll be getting that.
Special reserve or limited run? I forget.
Special reserve, and the book, which is like the Ammonomicon that Matt has for Enter the Gungeon, which is cool. It's the in-game encyclopedia of Loop Hero.
You have to fill out as you go. It's so cool.
And it's like, this was just, it was so different, but it was just like a completely new experience.
This was the first game. In fact, this game pissed me off. Not only because like I finally beat the first boss. I've not even been close to the second one. But this game pissed me off because there were 2 games that I wanted to try. I wanted to try this and Crusader Kings 3 when I first got my PC. This game basically deleted any time I would have with Crusader Kings 3, because where I see Crusader Kings 3 is right next to Loop Hero. Yes, you could say, Matt, you could just move the icon so you don't have to look. That's a good idea. But when why move the icon when I could just click it and play Loop Hero again. Yeah, Loop Hero
True
is
statement.
wonderful. Loop Hero is wonderful, and I think you are the only person, Jason, that I've heard describe it as inverse D&D,
Where
where
you're the game master.
you're the game master, and you have an NPC that you have to help through all of this. And I think that is a genius take on your part.
Thank you.
Uh,
It was the closest to Rogue, where like you don't get anything without
Mhm.
being, because you still get stuff, but it's not like Slay the Spire. You play, you build a deck. It's still somewhat random. Loop Hero is like
Mhm.
completely random, even with stuff like you don't know what you're getting. Like
Yeah.
some runs start fantastic, some don't. You could spawn the boss and have 1/3 health bar, and you're like,
Mhm.
well, what the hell?
Oh yeah, that would, like, you're like, okay, I mean, and I think you said it. I think you said it on the last episode where you can't really plan for your boss encounter, because you could have a great laid plan that needs you to go around once, but if that boss shows up before you can even get any bit of the way into it.
It's like playing Monopoly, and you're like, I just need to reach go and I'll be good. And
Yeah.
yet you roll a 1 and land on every property on that side of the board, and you're like,
Mhm.
oh, now I'm bankrupt.
Yep.
Like, I just need to get to that point.
Mhm.
I see the finish line.
And then
But I
it
can't
has like that. I don't know what to call it. It's like the world building of like ActRaiser, which is totally independent, like where you build up this village, and you're like, how is this connected? And because at first it seems useless to your game, but then you're like, oh, I could do this, and you're like, I mean, you obviously didn't get into the final act, Matt, but like it
No, I
makes
haven't.
when you build up the whole map, it's like, this is just so cool. It was a new experience. It was unlike anything I played.
Mhm. Like, and the only reason it is only number 3 uh is frankly because of the way that 2 and 1 went. Like, they were just as unexpected, if not more.
Yeah,
For me,
it was nice playing a game that was a totally new experience and enjoying it as much as I did.
100%. Moose, you're number 2.
My number 2 is Ender Lilies. Is that it higher for anyone else? No.
Nope.
That's everybody said it at this point.
Yeah, it's that game is fantastic for the art style.
What a fucking gem this game is.
Yes, it is a gem. The art style, the soundtrack, the combat, the variation of like how your protagonist doesn't do any of the attacking. It's the spirits of the knights that she takes on and kind of saves, become, part of your arsenal. The exploration from some of us doing it the right way and some of us, aka Michaela, doing it just like, I'm getting over there. I'm just getting over there and I'm getting what I need to get. It was a lot of fun. The atmosphere was really cool. A lot of good, I guess you can call them biomes or just different areas of the games. Like the catacombs were a lot of fun. The ruined castle was a blast. Also, obviously, it's a Metroidvania, so re-exploring areas was a lot of fun with the new abilities that you got from bosses and new weapons. Especially my favorite weapon, I would have to say, was the crow or the mage, where you could like shoot the balls, the magic balls at things, and they kind of home in. But like the crow is pretty cool. But because it'd just be out there shooting its little things, doing its thing. But yeah, it was a blast. And much like Death's Door, the bosses could be frustrating, but I thought they were fair, and I thought they did a good job of like teaching you how to do it. And speaking of the mage one, she was the one that took me the longest amount of time. But I feel like I feel like the rest of y'all like breezed through her and had a harder time with other ones. So it's kind of like Dark Souls, where it's like, this boss is really tough for me. Really, I had a breeze with that one, but this one's my hardest. Oh, really? That one was my easiest one. Like just kind of flip flops and goes back and forth. Just it just depends on what you're better with when you're trying to like play a Metroidvania and whatnot. But yeah, and the platinum was pretty straightforward. I know this is really funny. I know there were like the boss fight had multiple phases, and I did the hardest phase first and didn't realize it. And then I just had to I freaking rolled the boss the second time I went through and took it on. It was just like, we done. But anyways, yeah, that was a good end fight for the game, I felt. And I also love like how you like everybody's build was different. Like somebody like I liked using this guy. I mean, I liked using for melee attacks the very first knight you get, which is just a sword swing. He was a lot of fun. I liked Gerard, the heavy two-handed mace dude, just like slamming things, especially because he had an upward attack, so you can hit things above you, which was really nice.
Walls.
And through walls, and like if you were stuck behind a platform, you could just hit the thing up above you and just dissolve the enemy's health. So it is a beautiful game, wonderful sounding, and just the combat is just perfect. So it's a great game. I highly recommend checking it out if you haven't this year. Definitely play it.
This was my, if the year ended in July, game of the year game. Favorite.
You felt hard.
Game. Yeah. Not at all. I mean, it felt a 4, but I mean.
No, I mean like you fell hard for the game.
Oh yeah.
You fell in love hard.
I mean, yeah, it was just. I couldn't put it down. Like. There were so many boss fights and nothing repeated. Like they were all different, which was pretty cool considering how many fights there were.
Yeah.
There were double-digit fights, yet none were the same. And
no, which was nice. That was refreshing. Yeah.
And the exploration was very accessible. Like the map kind of aided that, but still left it like there were secrets to figure out. It was.
I wanted to mention the accessibility of this in that this is the kind of game that I would recommend to any level of gamer, pretty much. People who get scared or turned off when they hear things that get compared to Metroidvanias, that get compared to Souls-likes. Though this is a little less Souls and a little more Metroidvania. It's got that fast travel anytime situation going on. It's got the accessible map features going for it. It can be challenging, but not excessively so, not to the point where like Fist is a very challenging game. Metroid Dread can be a very challenging game. Ender Lilies will give you a challenge, but it doesn't have the same kind of like difficulty spikes that you find in so many Metroidvanias, like Ori, for example. Beautiful game. I love the Ori games. It's literally designed around difficulty spikes because each chapter ends essentially with a difficulty spike with the escape sequences. Ender Lilies is a beautiful, inviting, I'll call it inviting game, because accessible can mean so many things in terms of like, is it accessible to people who are vision impaired, hearing impaired, motor impaired, all those things. It is an inviting, welcoming game for bringing players into a genre that they may already love, they may be hesitant to play, they may be completely new to. It's gorgeous. It's got hints of Nier in the narrative, but also in the music. It's like
Yeah.
Salt and Sanctuary got redone in like a picturesque sort of like,
Yeah.
it's got that palette and that sort of like grimy, dark, dreary but beautiful aesthetic to it. The pixels in this game just sing a little bit. The little girl is that spot of light. I think that's what does it, that spot of light. And there's pops of color, reds and blues, and the flowers, and then you have the different domains. The biomes are very distinct in this game. Like you're not going to confuse the catacombs, which are surprisingly bright with all these candles everywhere, with the ruined castle, with the verboten domain, which will kick your ass sideways, and you'll say thank you for it later. The enemy design we've already talked about. The bosses were great, and the music is just very, very another solid, game from either a new developer or a young studio. This year has had a lot of promising new young indie voices coming onto the scene with things like Ender Lilies, Kina, I forget what other ones, Fist we were talking about.
Yes.
It's a solid year for the indies, I believe.
I agree.
I have
Philip?
nothing really further to add to that because y'all said everything.
And we did an episode on it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Michaela?
My number 2, it's Tales of Arise. This one, like Ys, is not a JRPG franchise that I grew up playing. It's not my first, but I am still newer to the series within the past few years. I still very much need to play Vesperia, the definitive edition, burning that hole in my backlog. But this game is everything that you could really want in a modern version of a action JRPG franchise that is so historical. So it's still got the Tales identity, but it does feel like a big step forward was taken this year in the franchise, visually, but also in terms of the UI and the combat mechanics. Everything's very fluid. Tales has always been built around that like party, combining your knowledge of different skills across your different party members. And it works really well here. I really, really enjoyed mastering all 6 of the characters. They do feel genuinely distinct. There's so many games, and Ys does fall into this trap, where, yeah, sure, maybe one character's got a hammer, so he swings a little bit slower and it feels a little bit heavier than the guy who's got your standard sword. This goes so much more beyond that with how each character feels and the speed at which they play. Like playing Rinwell as a ranged mage is going to feel very different from playing Alphen as a close melee warrior, or Shion with her gun, or Kisara with her shield and stuff like that. Everybody feels very distinct and is worthwhile to master, and can make or break. Your ability to switch between the characters and get good at them can make or break certain combat scenarios. Of course, there is a sound ass fishing mechanic in this game. Thank you. Thank you. I needed it. I got so deep. So deep. Like there's 2 JRPG holes I fell in super deep this year.
This is where you could have been Bravely Default 2. Just saying.
Bravely Default's card game did not get me. The 2 JRPG systems that got me this year, Fort Condor getting turned into like an RTS game that's playable in the FF7 DLC. That one got me. And the fishing in Tales of Arise. Love it with Kisara, best mom. The characters were great. Not all of them are necessarily likable right off the bat, but they develop really well as their own people, but also in their relationships with everybody else. The best thing, my favorite thing I think about most JRPGs that I fall deeply in love with is the growth of the party together within the narrative. seeing these characters, how they interact and grow and develop over time together. That's why I love games like FF10. It's about those relationships. And then also great gameplay that moves you along through the plot, and Tales has it. The story was very engaging from the get-go, and it was good, and then it was pretty good, and then it was really good, and then it was like, fuck, I can't put it down. I need to know what happens next. So beautiful game, fun game, engaging story, and memorable characters. There's really no higher praise I can give.
My number 2 was Inscription.
Ooh.
But we'll talk about that shortly.
Yes.
But there's a reason then why my number 1 was 1 over this. But Matt, your 2?
My number 2 is Art of Rally, a game I found on Game Pass that decided to recontextualize everything I think about racing games in a way that's not been done since Burnout Paradise. I'm a healthcare worker, and I spend a lot of my day genuinely facing a lot of situations that are stressful and mentally taxing, and on some level, depending on the day, traumatic. When I found Art of Rally, I got lost in its beautiful visuals, its wonderful controls. It's easily one of my, and for not being one of those folks who will ever really invest in a racing wheel, just because I don't like racing games that much. I predominantly only like kart racers or arcade racers. This game's controls made me want to be better and wanted to do better in this game. There are sections where it's just, you could just drive around an open world and listen to some of the chillest synth wave this side of the early 2000s. I like how it's it's based in the idea of how rally racing used to be, like in the probably 60s and 70s, rather than like the modern day F1 or NASCAR, where it is all about tweaking power without necessarily, like, it's about, like, F1 and NASCAR seem about tweaking power based around an almost arbitrary set of rules, so it doesn't just become whoever's going to throw the most money at a car. And playing Art of Rally it's such a joy. I cannot wait to get it on PlayStation and platinum it, because I will 100% do that. I have thought about really trying to advocate for the soundtrack to be put on vinyl, but the soundtrack would probably end up being 10 records. And I'm like, no, I'll just keep that on Spotify. that's too much. There's a lot of music there, and it's also it is all at a very, very high quality, and it bops, it whips, it slaps. You know what? I'll say it. It fucks. Art of Rally absolutely rules. And if you are even minorly interested in a racing game, this is it. And this is what I would say try. Not because it, I mean, it is time based. It does want you to finish. It does give you a ranking, but my favorite aspect is it's just you on the track. You're not bogged down by other cars getting in the way. It's just you and the track. And some of the vistas are just striking, visually arresting. There are some where you are driving around the Arctic. You are going over ice lakes and parts of the ocean that are icy. It's wonderful. You should play it.
Dun, dun, dun. Our number ones.
Y'all know what my number one is.
I don't think any of us have the same number one this year.
Which is cool.
Don't think so. Next year we might, but this year my number one is Demon Souls. It's so good. Surprise!
I'm shook.
Stop the presses. Stop the
I don't
presses.
understand.
Stop
How
the
did this
presses.
happen?
Alert
How
the
did this
media.
happen? Luckily, got a text from Jason saying disc or digital, and I was like, what? And that was back in June, and was able to get a PS5. Not finally, because I did pass up on the one in November because I had to for personal reasons. But anyways, got a PS5, got Demon Souls, started playing it. Very much can see the other games in the series in this game. You can see their roots. Combat is great. Multiplayer is great. The world is beautiful. Like, it is a gorgeous game to look at, to just walk around. Like, when you get to the hub area, kind of like Firelink Shrine, the Nexus, it's just amazing to just walk in there and just look at the lighting. And what I thought was cool is they added filters where you could see a vivid version of it. You could see the classic version of it and whatnot, and just check it out. It's beautiful. The sounds in the game are great. The boss fight music is phenomenal. It's just a lot of fun to listen to, and then the boss fights are really good. It's a remake, so I kind of like how Blue Point left some of the bosses janky, kind of a little bit of jank. They didn't fully hey, we're gonna upgrade some exploits or whatnot. I felt this is
they took out the duplication. Blue Point, you fucked up. Miyazaki said leave it in. He's like,
I don't think he said that.
Is a feature. Yeah, he did actually. He did. He's like, I'm not going to fix it. I'm not going to fix it.
Well, he didn't tell them to leave it in, and they didn't. He just said he wasn't fixing it for the original.
I just said he left it in. I was like,
right.
But
anyways.
But I will say this: they took out the duplication, but they gave us Penetrator's armor, which was not. And
they also, from my understanding, they also gave us the ability to send stuff to our stash. I don't think that was in the first one.
No, you're right. You're right.
So I think that's a trade-off. Anyways, I feel this is one of the harder scaling new game cycles for a Souls game. Like going from new game to new game plus, I feel it's tougher. Although I feel you can also be severely under leveled fighting all the bosses and whatnot. So anyways, for me, it was not even going to be in my top 3, to be honest, for a long time there. And then when I did the platinum run with Razzie and our buddy Sneaky Troll, it just the co-op and then not over leveling, but getting to the right level just helped. Just getting the right level and really focusing, because I was just doing plus 10 weapons. And then I was like, oh, I'm strength build. I should have crushing weapons. So then I had to go farm the stuff to make crushing weapons plus 10. And then damage went through the roof. And then as I think I looked at it and I was 10, 15 levels, maybe 20 levels under level for the end game. So it was just I should probably level up. And so I grinded out a couple of levels, here and there, and getting stuff grinding materials for the trophies is what got me in the Souls for the extra levels. And then, just hit the ground running. And co-op is a lot of fun. It's so much easier to co-op than the other Souls games. You just throw your sign down and boom, it's instantly there. You look away for a second and you can see the blue glow on an item and be like, oh yeah, Matt signs down, or Razzie signs down. And I think it was interesting that you could beat a boss and summon somebody in an area, you could also get invaded in an area if you're human. So like in Dark Souls, I'm sure it does it in 2 and it does in 3, and Bloodborne's a little bit different on the invasion system, but like you have to be human in Dark Souls 3 to be invaded. And this you do as well, but if you kill the boss, you cannot be invaded. But in Demon Souls, totally can be invaded. So it was a lot of fun playing through, getting all the items, and just finding different weapons that work. And I have started a magic build, and magic is pretty cool. So I'm thinking when I get Elden Ring, I'm going all magic on that. But it is the only thing I absolutely hate it about the game was the damn dogs. The dogs in Demon Souls are worse than the dogs in Bloodborne. And I thought the dogs in Bloodborne were bad. But these
dogs in the Souls series as a whole are generally pretty bad.
Pretty terrible.
Yeah.
Like they teleport. Like I've watched speedrunners actually show that they teleport. Like they'll be 20, 30 feet away from them, turn their camera as they're running, and all of a sudden they get hit by a dog. And it's like that thing moved in a second. There's no way it did it. So, but anyways, I highly recommend if you got a PS5 and you want to try something challenging, check it out. And the only sad thing about the game is the fact that you can't get a PS5. So I feel like the player base is at the same level for the game as Dark Souls 3 is, and Dark Souls 3 is now what, a 6-year-old? No, it's a 5-year-old game.
5-year-old game.
5 years old now. Gonna be 6 years in April. It came out in April of 2016, I think. April or May or whatever. But anyways, so it's just sad. Like you don't, like I could be human and be out in areas where I'm like, I'm gonna get ganked and just see like nobody would invade. So it's just sad. And hopefully as we get through this whole like shortage issue with chips and the availability of PlayStation 5s, the player base will like pick up. I have a feeling this will be free. It'll be like Bloodborne. It'll be a PlayStation Plus game in like 2 to 3 years. And then when everybody can get a PS5, the player base will explode again. But anyways, it's a great single player game. It's a great multiplayer game. And it's just a great game, period. And the story is, I actually enjoyed this story the most out of all of them because I like the fact that it was taking place before, quote unquote, the catastrophic event happened. Like it can happen. It's about to happen. Well, there's something going on, somebody brings back some demons and now the world's being devoured, but it's not like after that happened and then you have to like rekindle a flame like in Dark Souls or Dark Souls 3. Like it's, you're not like rummaging through the ruin of a world. Like you're at the verge of it going down. So there's like human characters that you take on that aren't like necessarily NPCs that you can talk to and have a conversation with. They're actually enemies in the game. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. But anyways, Demon Souls #1.
Nice. I'm glad you played it. I'm glad you enjoyed it that much. Michaela.
Not to one up Moose on how shocking that, my game of the year pick is. But my #1 is Nier Replicant.
Oh my God. Surprise.
I know, you guys, nobody saw this coming. Like, why?
Not one person.
No.
Nah.
You've not talked about this several times at all this year.
No.
In fact, I didn't know you even played. I didn't even know you played this game.
I hit it pretty well.
I hit it real well.
Nier, there's so many things to say about Nier, but Nier is more than a game. And for a long time, Nier Replicant, or as we used to have it here in the West, because shit got released weird, Nier Gestalt.
Yeah.
was not recognized as a good game. It's a game that had a cult following, and had some issues with how it launched, and people not loving the gameplay but intrigued by the story and the characters and what the fuck is going on. How is this related to Drakengard? What is a Drakengard? Wait, what?
Mhm.
What are we doing here? Where did this come from? Why
There
is
were
there a
3
man wearing a robot
Drakengards?
head? Yeah. Who's Yoko Taro and why is he rolling around on the ground? Like, what the fuck is he doing? Near
Who's this man standing at E3 with a giant sphere on his head with a weird smile?
I always
Yep.
thought he was the mascot for Jack in the Box.
yeah.
That's funny.
So
I like that.
Near Automata made this happen, and I'm very glad it did. Near Automata is a special game for me. It's in my top 5 games of all time, and this is where it started. And I had obviously I knew Near like I went and I watched playthroughs and whatever, but I didn't have a PS3, so I didn't get to play Near when the original version. I just watched it multiple times. So waiting for the announcement, getting the announcement, and then getting the game was an experience that, I was like, there's maybe 1 or 2 games this year that might challenge it for my game of the year, but it didn't even come close. Like my 2 through 7 is pretty tight.
Mhm.
Near is up here. And the reason for that is, like I said, it's more than just a game. It is an experience. It is a moment. It is a living piece of art. And it's easily misunderstood. It's not for everyone, but it is for me.
Not all
it is-
about
That
you.
counts.
It's not all
right
about
now
you,
it
God
fucking
damn it.
is.
Damn.
This is about my opinions and my tastes and my happiness. So yes, it is.
Yes, it is about you.
So
Can I ask a quick question?
yeah.
Are the 2 stories related? Like,
Yes.
so you would recommend playing that one before
Actually,
Automata?
no.
Oh, play that first and then go backwards.
You can play it in either order. Whatever
Oh,
one speaks
nice.
to you. I played Automata before I watched Gestalt or Replicant.
Mhm.
There's things you'll understand in Automata if you play the first game, but there's things that will hit you harder if you play Automata first and then go back to play. You can play it in either order and get all sorts of feels. They take place like 10,000 years apart, but they do
Yeah.
share some characters and references in common.
That's kind of like the moment in Dark Souls 3 where you're in Alandor and you find the blacksmith. Like, you find him dead. And you're like for me, it was like, okay, whatever, going through my thing. But when I replayed Dark Souls Remastered, I walked in there and was like, what? And then you get to like talk to him, interact with him, and I was like, yo, that ain't cool. So
Yeah. Andre's a good dude, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't
no,
Andre, it was the giant blacksmith. Do you
it
remember
wasn't
the one
Andre,
that's
it
in
was
the
giant.
stairwell?
Putting those words together.
Oh, the one that's in Orlando. I apologize.
Yeah, in the stairwell that, like, when you get back there, I think
He's just the giant.
there's an ash there or
blacksmith.
something
Yeah.
that you can pick up. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Tangent.
No worries.
Apologies.
But yeah, Automata wouldn't exist without Replicant. It is technically a sequel, but Replicant is where these characters that I fell in love with just get their start. Emil pulls at your heart in a big way, Matt.
Yeah.
For me, Kaine will get me right in the heart every time. I got a soft spot for Vice too. And then of course there's Protag Boy and Yona and everybody and all of the weird random ass fucking NPCs that you deal with on these like seemingly like annoying quests that you end up saying yes to anyways. And then of course like Devlin and Popola too. And then the music is a transportive element in these 2 games. It is truly something special. The things that they do with music in these games. Like I can close my eyes and hear these games for the next 20 years. Even if I never played the soundtrack again, I would hear it in my head for 20 years, no problem, as clear as it is today. And they definitely did more than just a visual polish here. I talked about the additions of like the shipwreck. I talked about the ending E. It's just, they did everything I could have possibly wanted them to do with a re-release of this game. And I can only sit here and say, thank you for making this happen, because it is a work of art. It is a work of art that I got to experience, and I put some fucking grind in for this platinum. It was an important platinum to me. Nier Automata was my first platinum, so I stuck it out here for Replicant, and it was worth every moment, and there was fishing.
Nice.
And I don't know how the fishing was the first time around, but I like it here.
I don't think they really changed it too much.
Okay. Well, then I like this fishing. So there. But yeah, I would, just to speak on the music real quick before we move on. If you can listen to both of these soundtracks and not find something that you feel, I have some questions.
You, sir, might be a robot.
Well, even the robots in this game, you, sir, might just be straight up like psychopath.
You might just be no. You might be lying about not feeling it. But no, these games are great.
Yep, these games are great. If you let them, they will tug at your heart every time.
There's a moment after, I think it's towards the end of the A playthrough, or maybe it's right after, where Kaine looks up and stares for a beat at Emil and just says, "Hey, Emil." And that moment, like, you don't see the obvious overwhelming emotion that Emil is feeling, because by this point he is the mask. But that moment speaks volumes on experiences that we've all had, but may not understand. And it is a beautiful moment, and I've only seen something like that in a video game.
Yeah, these two games actually are extremely existential, philosophical. They truly are an examination. I think the overarching narrative, the purpose it serves, it is an examination of the human condition through a lens of something that is not necessarily human. It is both familiar and foreign in the same moment. It is a dichotomy that walks, talks, breathes. It is like I said, I can't put it any other way. This game is art. It is art.
100%.
I'm going to defer to Matt so then I can explain why his number one is not my number one, because it would make more sense that way.
I like it. All right.
You know what? All right. So hang on. I have to pull up. So December 1st of this year is the day that this game became my game of the year. I do believe I said it to Jason that day, and I'm like, this is my game of the year. And Jason and I had we were having conversations as we were getting further and further in this game. And then after we had both finished it, we had both said to each other, you know, the first impression of this game, which is a dark card game that is kind of a roguelike, kind of a run base. It's kind of a Slay the Spire, because there's, a board, you pick your paths. that part of it where you have very dark synth drones as your music, you can get up and walk around a room. Somehow you can pull your teeth out to give you an advantage, or you could cut one of your eyes out and give yourself an even bigger advantage. And then you have this set of eyes just making wisecracks the entire time, and then the cards are talking to you. This is a very nice impression. That alone was top 5. Like it probably would have been where Monster Hunter is, and then just pushed everything else above. Art of Rally could have been my game of the year at that particular point. Then I beat the Trapper. And then I destroyed the moon. And then I took a picture of the person I was playing the game against. And then I had to quit the game in order to progress. Like, you have to actually exit out of the game. You have to Alt F4 out of the game, restart it, and then the game opens different.
So, for background, when you start inscription, you push continue. Like the first time you start the game, you press continue. Which is, I mean, it was weird, but not really like, oh, okay, like whatever. Like, it doesn't.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm like, huh, okay. And then I completely forgot about it.
When you do beat the first act, you find the new game.
Yeah, you find the new you find the new game.
Piece. And then when you Alt F4, it's there and you can click new game.
Yep. And then it turns into Pokemon or Earthbound or both. And then it becomes a game within a game about a game about a game. And
6 degrees of games.
And then by the time all on this day, I'm like, Jason, I'm playing Act 2. I'm about halfway through. I sent him a screenshot of something that had happened. And I'm like, and it's basically a screen full of.
Did my PC just blue screen?
Full of error message, like the game is basically starting to eat itself. I'm going to throw it in our Discord real quick just so you can see what I sent Jason.
And what's interesting is Matt's journey was different because I beat the game. I beat Act 1. I beat the boss of Act 1 before I solved all the puzzles. Because the puzzles aren't required to beat him. They are to progress to the next act.
Yeah, I think you said like, I've beat this guy like 4 times. What's happening? What do I do here?
So I beat him, and I go to take the camera, and there's no film, and he's like, give me that. And it's like, what the fuck? And then I don't know if you knew, Matt, he takes your death card and nails it to the door because you're a winner.
Yeah, no, I watched him do that. I'm like,
then finally I got to, we were going back. It was a seesaw because he got ahead of me, then I got ahead of him, and then it was like, okay, stop, I'm not there yet. Don't spoil it.
Yeah. And then on top of that, I was also talking with folks in the Uppercut Discord about it. I think the editor-in-chief Ty and a luminary of the Uppercut community, Glenn Badishill, as well as Atma, who has been on the show before. Like, all of them were kind of like saying, they didn't want to say, and nobody wanted to say anything to sort of give me a leg up in the Trapper battle. But when I finally broke through, all of them were like, and I'm like, and I would say like, so I destroyed the moon and now I'm in Pokemon, and they're like, this is normal. And I think I sent Glenn the same screenshot that I just put in our Discord. He's like, yep, I've been waiting for this moment. I'm like, what? But as I got through and started to really follow the meta, and then when I finished the game and I was completely inconsolable and not okay for like several hours, to the point where I basically had to unload everything I had experienced onto my wonderful and supportive wife, who was ultimately, like, by the end of it, she was just, I think she said I need therapy, but which fair. But this game was 100% something. While Loop Hero was something very new, I had not had an experience like this with a game. And I know that I could probably go on for a very long time, but the way Jason said it perfectly is, it's like that TikTok trend that's happening right now with Lola from Big Mouth, where you hear Jay from Big Mouth go, and just like that, Lola's gone. Well, just
Wrong.
like that, Inscription is a roguelike deck builder.
Wrong.
Wrong. I'm something completely different, you fucking Brussels sprout. I would say, I think if everything were to go right, Inscription would probably be 6 to 8 hour game. Seem fair? Like, if everything goes right, it's a 6 to 8 hour game. I think I ended up playing, my Steam counter says like 50 hours. I did not play this game for 50 hours because one morning I left it on while I went to hang out with Moose for the day. And then I didn't actually play it again until like a day and a half later. So
yeah, I saw that and I was like, he is not. I was like, because I finished in 7.5. I'm like, what the
Like,
fuck's he good?
He's
What
not
the-
that special.
I was
He's
like,
not that special.
What did he do for 30 something hours?
yeah, I left my computer on. That's what I did. But this game is 100% special. If they ever do physical card packs, I'm buying these and I'm going to frame them and hang them on my wall. This game fucking rips.
This game, there's twists. Like, Deathloop has a twist, but you kind of figure it out before the character.
Mhm.
There's twists like Trigger Witch where it's like, what the fuck was that? And then, but then you're okay. And then they're like, because you could play all of Trigger Witch, and it's at the end. It's like, oh, it's kind of like this Sixth Sense. Like, oh, this though, it's like, oh, we're gonna have a twist for the end of Act 1. No, we're not done with the twist. And then we're not done with the twist. And then we're not done. And you're like, what the hell is what? So yeah, it's definitely it was an experience like none other.
And the icing on the cake is the polygon piece, where it says all of the secrets to Inscription are in Inscription. It's not like you don't have to go do a whole bunch of like ancillary reading or anything like that. You don't have to know like literary stuff that this is pointing to. And I really liked that. After reading that, I was like, okay, I'm glad I read this. I'm also glad that I don't ultimately need that to get the experience I had. And like, this is the past few years have really made Swiss cheese of my 10 favorite games of all time. And I think if I were to sort of obliterate that list and just start from today and try and make it, I think Inscription would be on there. It does not remove Outer Wilds from the top spot, but
It's close.
I'm really glad for the past like 5-6 years of games that I've been trying. Clearly me trying other things outside of what my comfort zone was then, and continuing to do so now has paid off. So play games that you don't necessarily think you'll like, and you'll definitely find some gems. Jason, why the fuck isn't Inscription your game of the year?
So my game of the year. See,
Call
everyone.
of Duty. No.
No, because it was an honorable mention. No, I had to be different. The three of you had no surprises whatsoever.
Right.
I mean, not that this is a surprise. Maybe it's placement, but Returnal is my number one. Returnal is a phenomenal game. Visually, the audio, it doesn't have a story when you really start, and then the story picks up, and then you're not really, you don't care about the story at first, so you start piecing more together, because you're piecing it together like Celine is, and then you're like, oh, and then you deal with the horror scenes, which trigger warning for if you're scared of the dark. I mean, there's some it's like you kind of, it's on the level of Alien Isolation. Like, you're walking through this creepy house, like there's lots of shadows, you don't know, and then like all of a sudden you're like, no, we're playing with the lights on in the daytime without headphones with other people around.
Yeah.
But the big thing for me, and the reason it leaped Inscription, and this isn't a boast, because I don't think I'm everyone else needs to get good. I pride myself on trying to play games. My default is the hardest difficulty, or whatever the developers intended. I want to, granted, Returnal doesn't have a difficulty. Returnal presented a challenge to me, though. Inscription's not, it's not easy, because the puzzles they're out there. I mean, some of them are like, to know to stab yourself in the eye and then pick a replacement eye and then look at a clock to turn the clock.
That gives you Terminator vision.
It's weird, but I mean, there's no real fail. Like, you could just keep trying.
Yeah.
I played 25 hours of Returnal when it launched, and I didn't beat it. And I think most games, not that I was quitter, but it was like, okay, whatever. I'll revisit it sometime. If I don't, I don't. I just kept plugging away. Like, this was one game I have to do this. Like I don't know what it was about. Like, Titanfall 2, the Gauntlet. I know at least two people are familiar with it. I got 0.2 seconds away from that trophy. I still don't have it. 0.2.
Right.
And I haven't gone back.
Same.
Returnal was one I just kept plugging away, took a break, I came back, and it was just, once I hit that snag and then passed it, it was like, it's when you beat a boss and you're like, yes. Not like, oh, okay, I just beat the game. Like, this was like, it was a sense of accomplishment, and it was so cool. And it just,
the Nightmare and Remnant.
Yeah, like, I mean, we were like screaming about that. That was one of those. Well, we didn't know what to do in Remnant, to be fair.
Right.
We were just shooting at it. Like, he's not taking damage. This is gonna take forever.
Yeah.
And then we showed Moose and Michaela. It was like, oh, me and Matt were like, we died.
Yeah,
and he was like,
we were
95%.
I think there was we had one run at that boss where we were literally on it for a half hour without getting out of phase one, and I think we still got it down like a third of his health, just taking little chunks off like that.
But yeah, Returnal, the challenge, I think, is I want to be challenged, and when you clear a challenge, it's like so satisfying. Like, it's just that sense, that feeling you get, like, because Returnal, I mean, visually, I mean, obviously you can't compare it to an Inscription. Like, visually, Returnal, obviously, I'm not talking about a card game. Like, the biomes are different, the sound, like, but like, it's probably going to win a ton of awards at the Game Awards. Sound, or at least be in the running for sound, visuals, like everything. yeah, it was just, I mean, it's a phenomenal game, but the challenge for me, like, I know some people, I'm sure if we were just on Reddit, people were like, good, the game's not that hard. It's like,
Right.
like it is
Game is
what
fucking hard.
it's
Mhm.
not, it's not easy. Like, it's not,
Right.
like, there's RNGesus who's a dick sometimes.
Oh yeah.
He giveth and then he taketh and he
Mhm.
continues to taketh away.
He takes more than he gives.
Yes, he does.
Like, it's like Christmas. He only gives like one day of the year.
And only
Mhm.
if you were good to him.
Yes.
Yeah.
So by us cursing him right now, he's going to take double.
Oh, we are on RNGesus's permanent naughty list simply because of this podcast. I guarantee it.
Oh yeah.
That's why I've said nothing, or Jesus, I've said nothing against you.
Hey,
I'm saying it right here, right now. RNGesus, use a stingy Santa bitch.
and you know what, Moose? You ain't safe. You ain't safe. RNGesus dishes out guilt by association too, bruh.
I don't know who
Yeah,
you
no,
are.
I mean,
I'm out of here.
it's like, that's what
Moose's
like,
last official appearance on the podcast.
but yeah, like the challenge alone is what moved it ahead of Inscription. Like, it's that sense of like, it's not taking away from other games, but some games you finish and you're just like, okay, I finished it. Like, it's not like,
Yeah.
but I mean, everyone now, I'm like, we've all played enough Souls games. Like, you've banged your head against the wall and then you beat it and you're like, yes, yes.
Mhm.
Like, that's what Returnal was, and on more than one occasion. Like,
It's a
when
genuine
I
sense of accomplishment
yeah,
that
like,
other forms of media can't give you.
no,
Right.
like, I mean, how often do you cheer at a movie?
Or like, yes, I finished a book.
Yeah.
Okay, calm
Yeah,
down.
I'm sorry. Every time I finish a book,
Don't make fun of me because I have trouble.
We told
reading.
y'all he was
It takes a
special.
lot to get through a sentence
dude.
for me.
I finished three of those big volumes of Berserk this year, and I've cheered every single time.
But yeah, so that's why Returnal takes the cake for me.
That makes
It
sense. The way you talked about it last time,
It was a toss up though. Like, my first draft had Inscription first, but then I was
Mhm.
like, I did a pros and cons list. I wrote out, and I was like, yeah, this is.
How adult of you.
I know.
out.
Someone's gotta do it.
Right?
But yeah, yeah, it was a good year for gaming.
Yes.
Turns out, like most years of gaming, tons of shit show surprises show up at the end of the year.
Yeah, it's. I'm not gonna lie, it's not easy to do this list.
It never is.
Like, like, we talked about it. We joked, like, Rogue Heroes. That was this year.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Especially when you have games on your list that are from the final quarter of the year, it definitely pushes games. Like, I have no doubt, like, not for me, but Elden Ring will probably be in the top 5 or top 3 for the 3 of you, most likely.
Excuse
Sure.
you presumptuous. No, I'm kidding.
I'm gonna save that fucking clip right there. Play it back. But another
Michaela's
like,
number one of 2022, Elden Ring.
Not a
Excuse
chance
you.
with
No, I'm
Horizon
just
coming out.
I'm just kidding. I'm just
Yeah.
kidding.
no, but like,
Yeah,
but then a game
you never
like,
know.
Oh,
a
I
game
pretty much
like-
know. I'm fucking psychic. Haven't you learned that by now?
but I guess the difference is a game like Elden Ring, everyone's going to be talking about for the majority of the year, probably. Either
Mhm.
it's going to be absolutely terrible, or there's
Right.
going to be no middle ground. But like a game like Rogue Heroes, me and Moose could have talked about it all year, but like, it didn't get, like, it's an indie. So like, and you
Yeah.
kind of like, when, like, this is why I have to keep a spreadsheet. And I was like, oh yeah, I
Yeah.
played that this year.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, games that come out, like, you play in March, you're like, oh yeah.
Mhm.
Like, next year we already know Horizon. We have God of War. It's like games like Sifu.
Mhm.
may not be your immediate, like, oh, what'd you play this year? Like, oh yeah, I played that. Especially with where it's launching.
Right.
So
Yeah,
Well,
February.
Yeah. Matt,
I-
Monarch got a February date, by the way. Literally, dear gaming industry, because this episode is actually all about us. No more games in February. You're not allowed. Pick a different month.
Wait,
Get
which
the
one's
fuck out.
Monarch?
It's the Atlas people. Remember that?
Oh Jesus God! Wait. God.
It's okay. Just wait till March to play it. Or
How
April.
dare you spoil us? Get the fuck out.
Yeah.
No more February games. It's not allowed.
Yeah.
but
It's,
yeah, gamers again.
Well,
as I
hang
said-
on. Well, hang on. Before we get out of here, I want to just quick put a question to the panel. Any goals for next year? Not gaming resolutions or anything like that. We could just like, do you look at your habits this year and think, I want to try something a little different next year? Do any of you do that?
I want to continue the new me. No, like not even the second
Jason
half,
Marshall 2.0.
kind of the final quarter.
We're at
maybe-
7.0 now, buddy.
maybe relax. We're more like 12.0. Come on. The final quarter, maybe a little longer of the year, I
Yeah.
kind of gave up on trophy hunting. Not because I don't want to, because a new game comes out, my immediate, I'll look at PSN profiles or Exophase or Power Picks.
Yeah.
But I found I got through a lot more. And the problem is not that I have to get through them, but like I have all these games that I feel I miss out on. Like,
Mhm.
and then obviously that leads into a goal of I beat 46 this year. I'd like to hit 50 by end of year, maybe, but like that would be my goal then.
Mhm.
On top of that, like the way I put, like, screw trophies and
Sure.
kind of play and like to try new experiences, like an inscription type or a loop hero or or even like a visual nut. No.
Oh, let's not go that far.
He's not that new. You're not new
Yeah,
enough to
yeah.
use the Jason.
Persona.
This new Jason is not.
Right.
I'd like to say I'm shocked that we're going to get out of the end of the year without Michaela having to buy Melody in Memory.
It's
Well,
Thanks,
December 8th.
thanks, Jason.
It's December. It's December. You know what?
I'll believe it when I see it. Bring it.
I love it. Are there trophies assigned to beating the dungeons or any kind of way we can?
Yeah, there's
You can
progression
verify
trophies.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. I don't think he'd do it, but
Right.
Getting back to the goals thing. So you guys know I do a thing. So every year I pick a genre and I try to play at least 2 to 3 games in that genre.
Mhm.
Last year, FPS. Previous years I've done platformers, Souls likes. That's how I got into Souls likes.
fighting games.
This year was beat 'em ups with like Foul
beat 'em ups, I
Play
meant.
and
How'd that go?
River City Girls. I only do 2 to 3 a year. The only one I picked up that I didn't play yet is Streets of Rage 4. So that's still going to be on the list.
So you did
but-
2.
Yeah, and I only try to do 2 to 3 because
Yeah.
I play less than I complete beat less than 20 games a year.
Mhm.
So it's not like I play like some of us, Jason.
He doesn't
but-
sleep.
No. So I've actually pivoted slightly for next year. Instead of picking a new genre, I am going to do a second chance challenge where I will go back and play a game that I dropped either because I was liking it but not enough, or something else came out, or like I just really feel like I need to give something a second chance. I'm a
City.
different gamer now. What'd you say?
River City.
No, that one's a big no. I'm not going to go back and play a game I straight up didn't like. Candidates would be things like Trails of Cold Steel. I played 10 hours of and dropped. Xenoblade the first, played about 10 hours and dropped. So stuff like that.
Xenoblade Chronicles, or is that
Yes.
what you're talking about? Okay.
Yeah, the first one. So I'm gonna go back. I keep a list of backlog games, but I also keep a list of games that I abandoned but would potentially go back to play. Not games that I abandoned because I fucking hated them.
Right.
So next year's challenge for me will be to play at least I usually try to do 2 to 3, but if some of these are a little bit longer than like a beat 'em up or a platformer, like Trails of Cold Steel and Xenoblade, those are not short games. So I want to do at least 1 to 2 second chances next year from my list of I will get back to it games.
Okay.
Moose.
Well, I kind of did it here towards the end of the year. I didn't touch Bloodborne, I think, for maybe the last half of the year, I want to say. So getting away from that,
So
trying to
you're
get
gonna
out.
continue to be sober.
Yes, continuing to be sober. Kind of along the same lines as Jason and Michaela, like just getting into the backlog and actually picking up games. Like I asked about Nier, because it's like, oh, I want to play that because I have access to it and I have access to both. And that's why I was like, which one should I play first? So I want to go back to Automata and do that one and then play, the next one in the series. And just, I need to get back to Outriders, Biomutant. Like there's a whole bunch of games on the list that aren't even on the PC. It's like my PS5, and try and get away. Like I had to delete Division 2, which I did because I got to a point where it's like I'm done with this. I need to move on to something else. So having that moment where it's like, okay, I'm good with this and I'm done. Like I'm playing Skyrim right now. This is like my 7th playthrough of Skyrim, but I love the game. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get the platinum for the PS5 version because it actually looks really good and it's playing well. So I'm like, I'll get the platinum and then delete it, but I want to move in that direction of playing and I don't trophy hunt like Jason does, but I kind of want to go a little bit more the opposite direction and maybe work at getting more platinums that I can, like get the platinum in Skyrim, polish off the platinum in Dark Souls. I don't know, maybe play Sekiro. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but those are my plans for the year, and then continue along this path that me, Jason, and Jeff are on, where it's kind of like I kind of like their New Year resolution. So it's not necessarily a resolution. It's more along the line of a goal of like play the backlog and not get a lot of new games. Because like there's only really right now there's only 3 games for it because one hasn't been announced, but it's God of War, Horizon, and Elden Ring next year are my 3 guaranteed purchase games. And Helldivers 2, if it gets announced, will be bought day 1 next year. And I'm sure there's other games I can't think of off the top of my head, but those are the only ones that are on the list that's on the top of my head that like I'm going to buy them, or you know what I mean? We'll get them and then, play them. But so it's like, it seems to me like there's going to be a lot of time to hit the backlog, you know what I mean? And just like Control, that's my backlog game for January, to play in December and talk about in January, which I have yet to pick up because I was trying to do stuff for this to make sure I had things to talk about in categories and whatnot. And so now I have, 3 weeks to play that, which is nice. So that's my main goals for next year, and to play more PC stuff, like indie stuff. Like pick up Inscription or Loop Hero, play through that. But anyways, those are my goals for next year.
My goal is to look at the app that Michaela suggested, GG, and figure out how to organize my life a little bit in terms of games, but also like I would like to play more games on the PC, specifically through Game Pass, to kind of avoid the the money suck that games can be. Especially, like, I'm not going to really get into details, but y'all know what is happening off mic for me, and that ain't gonna be cheap. and
No.
and
Well, it also gets to the
I don't
point where
I don't want to give the wrong impression, but I am not a rich man.
It just gets to the point where it's like I feel like we've become hoarders of video games, and you just sit there and you look at it, and it's like you can't do anything with what you already have if you just keep buying stuff or keep shoving stuff in a closet. You can't get to the stuff that's already in the closet that you could use. You know, it just gets to a point where it's like, okay, and not that like we have digital video games, so it's not really taking up space, but it's really time. So it's kind of like just like it's that FOMO. You just have to kick FOMO in the nuts and push it off that spirit cliff, or that sacrifice,
the pushing cliff.
That we're the pushing
Story
cliff.
Route Zero pushing.
We're just gonna be like, see you later, FOMO. I mean, obviously, we're not gonna miss out on God of War and Horizon.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's stuff that we all have. There's stuff that we all have like a genuine love for, and
right. But it's like the games where we like look at, like we were looking at that, was it Chorus game you threw in the chat?
Yeah,
and this looks really good, and I looked at it and I was like, I don't think I said it to you, but I was like, I saw a friend streaming and I'm like, that's that game he was streaming that looked really cool, and I'm like, I want to pick it up, but it's like, no, I have enough to play. Like I have enough stuff to play. Like I mean, I can't.
Granted, I will probably pick up that game next year, but I will also wait for it to get on sale.
Well, see, that's the other thing too, is like not only like buying less, but going the Jeff route where it's like $20. I'll pick that up when it's $20. Like I was looking at Valhalla and Watch Dogs Legion, and the pack together was like $35. And luckily I waited, because like the next day it was like full price, which it's like $119 for the games together, or whatever it was, $109. And I'm like, that's good. I'll wait until next fall and get Black Friday sale and get Valhalla like with all the DLC for $35, because like I have yet to play through Origins or Odyssey, and I'm like, I have enough Ubisoft games to play. Like I'm good,
Sure.
But yep, my resolution is beat 10 games before you buy one. Me and Jeff already started a list in our spreadsheet. Let's try to stick to that at least.
Okay. Well, I know that we are going to have some things for each other before next year, or at least in terms of like a meeting between during our off time. But my one resolution that I'm going to do is I am going to play. You hear this now, and I am going to do this. I'm going to play every Yakuza game. Calendar year next year.
That is not a short order.
I am starting.
I was gonna say that
I'm starting Yakuza 0 New Year's Day. Mark my words. And by the end of by this time next year, before we take our break, I will have beaten 0 through Like a Dragon and possibly started Judgment. I'm not going to.
No, that's separate though, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's like a spiritual.
It's a spirit. Yeah, they're in the same world, and I that fascinates me. So I want to see where it goes. But,
right. No. I totally get that. And isn't there a sequel coming soon?
Lost Judgment. Out. It's already out, and it's already been on Black Friday sale.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Okay. But yeah. So I am going to. I have too many folks whom I respect and enjoy their talk and take on video games have said wonderful things, Michaela included.
Jeff likes them.
And I have to do it. I have to know, and I'm going to know. So you will be hearing a lot about Yakuza next year from me. Yeah, I'm excited to get into GG and start figuring out how I want to. I might need to pick your brain about that, Michaela, but we'll save that for another day. And I'm going to take the reins and say, if you didn't like anything we talked about today,
It's too fucking bad because it was all about us and it wasn't about you. But you know what? I just want to say, as our end of the year, with the Game Awards being tomorrow at the time of recording, your favorite games are your favorite games. They are not diminished by somebody else not liking them or not getting nominated for an award. They are not necessarily raised up by getting nominated for a bunch of awards. There's so many amazing games, and you are allowed to like what you like and love what you love, and so is the person next to you. Let's just all celebrate and be thankful and shut the fuck up with petty whining on Twitter.
Bye.
Story Route Zero, we have some cool friends who do some cool things, and I'd like to tell you about them. Phoenix Overdrive uses the power of games and gamers to help heal sick kids through the charity Extra Life. Phoenix Overdrive fundraises for Children's Miracle Network hospitals all year, every year, and the fun culminates in a 24-hour gaming marathon. Find out more about their events and projects online via Facebook at facebook.com/Phoenix Overdrive or on Twitter and Instagram at PHX_Overdrive. You can also join the Facebook group of Pawn Stars at facebook.com/groups/PO Nation in order to share and discuss all the latest in nerd culture. They've also got a podcast, Nerd Overdrive, which you can see weekly at youtube.com/Phoenix Overdrive. You can also catch it on Facebook Live or twitch.tv/PHX_Overdrive. That podcast is also published on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Stitcher. You want merch? They got merch. Merch can be ordered from tinyurl.com/PHXODmerch, a portion of which goes to their fundraising efforts. Join the nation and be a hero to sick kids, as El Capitan Rey Osorio, Lee the Maestro, and Becky, the lovely queen of the guild, always say, #Rise Above. Thank you for listening to Story Route Zero. We hope you have enjoyed your time here as much as we've enjoyed having you. Once again, questions, concerns, complaints, pictures of pets, or favorite recipes can be sent to storyroute0@gmail.com. You can yell at us on Twitter at StoryRoute0. Rate us and review us on iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you may have found us, as it helps with discoverability. If you'd like to hit us up individually, you can find Moose Cool at Sven, that's SVHENN on Twitter, PSN, Instagram, and of course Twitch, streaming games. You can find Jason Marshall writing at obelisk.co. You can also find him on Twitter at GimpyJ with 2 Y's at the end, as well as PSN, Instagram, and Twitch. He also has his own website, whereisthepausebutton.com. You can find Michaela Crescione doing all sorts of writing at obelisk.co, as well as on Twitter at RedXMaud. My name is Matthew Keel. You can find me everywhere I'd like to be at infinite_rewind. That's Twitter, that's Instagram, that's Twitch, that's PSN, and I also have my own website, infiniterewind.com. Be sure to check us out at all the places. You are always welcome, and you will always have a seat waiting for you on this ride. Thank you for listening, but for now, it's back to the real world for us. So we will see you on the next one.